لله تعالى اللهم لا سهل إلا ما جعلته سهلا وأنت تجعل الحزن إذا شئت سهلا. I ask Allah to make this easy for myself and for you. Let's get started. We have a lot to cover tonight, insha'Allah ta'ala. Tonight we're going to start talking about another big cult that has been attributed to Islam. This is the group called Al-Batiniyah. So the word Batin means inside or inward or hidden. Batin means not apparent. So these are the people of the hidden meanings. We're going to read what our author Abu Muzaffar has for us here, but perhaps you are familiar with some iterations or incarnations of the Batiniyah in our time. If you are aware of this group that calls itself the Nation of Islam, they are a cult of Batinis, people of secret, inward, hidden meanings, and also the group that branched off from them called the 5%ers. They are also Batinis. And also there's another group that split from the so-called nation who are Batinis. And I have seen that with my own eyes, in case there's anyone who disagrees here. I say this based on what I have seen with my own eyes in their own building, from their own speaker that they invited, and they loved everything he had to say. Some of the followers of Warithuddin, who is said to be the son of Elijah Muhammad, Elijah Poole, the founder of the so-called Nation of Islam, or at least, if not the exact founder, the one who is supposed to be, according to them, the messenger of Allah to the black man. So they broke away from the so-called Nation of Islam, and they wanted to have a more Sunni approach to the religion, yani. But they're still Batinis. And so what does it mean to be a Batini? Now you'll see, insha'Allah ta'ala. I will try to cover this entire chapter tonight. Wallahu ta'ala huwa al-muwaffiq. So the early scholars, they used to dispraise ta'wil. Ta'wil, that means giving alternative interpretation. But how could that be? Anyone who has studied with us has seen that we talk about ta'wil all the time. And that for sure, most definitely, there are ayahs of the Quran that require ta'wil. And there are hadiths of the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sallam that require ta'wil. So what is the ta'wil that was dispraised by the early scholars? That dispraise of ta'wil, alternative interpretation, was not about the mutashabih verses of the Quran, the ambiguous verses or hadiths. Rather, they were talking about the method of the people called the Batiniyah, who used to give alternative interpretations to the texts of the Quran, claiming that they had hidden meanings. These people, their tribulations appeared in the days of Al-Ma'mun. And this tribulation appeared under the management of a group of people, someone named Abdullah ibn Maymun al-Qaddah, who was the slave of Ja'far as-Sadiq. Because sometimes there are people who are affiliated with the pious, knowledgeable ones, but those affiliates are rotten, wretched, wicked ones. Also one whose name is Muhammad ibn al-Hussein, who was famous as Dandan. Someone called, his nickname was Dandan. And also, there was a group called Al-Jaharbija. Al-Jaharbija, it was said this means the four lads. Al-Ghilman al-Arba'a. The four young bulls. Like, basically like four guys who were a crew or a club. They were with Dandan and Maymun. They were with Dandan and one whose name is Maymun ibn Daysan. They all gathered in the prison of Al-Iraq, and they made this school, this way, which is like a secret society, actually, with code words. When they got out of prison, their call appeared. The first one to propagate this call was Dandan. He started his call with the Kurds of the mountain of Tuz, Mount Tuz, until a group of people of Badin answered his call. Then Maymun ibn Daysan, he went to the western lands, what's called in those old days Al-Maghrib. Today Al-Maghrib means Morocco, but then it was more than Morocco. And he claimed to be a descendant of Aqil ibn Abi Talib, one of the brothers of Ali. And when a group of people answered him and followed him, then he claimed to be from the children of Muhammad ibn Ismail ibn Ja'far as-Sadiq. Now, if you recall, in our first lessons, our early lessons in this book about the 73 factions, we learned about this man, Muhammad ibn Ismail ibn Ja'far as-Sadiq. Muhammad ibn Ismail, he's the one that the Baltiniyah, the Ismailis of the Baltiniyah, attribute themselves. So a group of ignorant people who did not know that this Muhammad ibn Ismail ibn Ja'far as-Sadiq died without having any children, they accepted this claim that this man was from his descendants. He didn't have any descendants. And among his followers was a man named Hamdan Karmat. And he called the people of Bahrain. Yani, what happened was, these guys, this society, when they got out of prison, they split up and they started calling people to their cult. They went into different directions. In the prison, they established what they wanted, and then when they got out, they went into different directions and started spreading their cult. They even had people who wrote books for them. Now, there's a lot here, and I'm skipping a lot. The historians, they mention that the people who established this cult of the people of the hidden meanings, the Baltiniyah, they were descendants of the Majus, the Persian fire worshippers, who had now, by this time when they appeared, which was around 220, 230 after the Hijrah, so still during the time of the Salaf, towards the tail end of the Salaf, by that time, the empire of the Majus had been defeated and eradicated. Since the time of Umar, the empire of the Majus, the Persian fire worshippers, had been wiped out. But there were still Persian fire worshippers existing. So these people who were in the prison, the historians said that they were descendants of the Majus, and they had the inclination or inclinations, they had inclinations towards the religion of their ancestors. You know how, like, for example, a lot of, or some Black Americans have inclinations towards the religion of their ancestors, other than Islam, actually. Their inclination, they say, we're Black, our ancestors are Africans, so let us embrace their religious practices, their cultural and religious practices. So they dress like them, or to a degree, and they do things that they do, including paganistic rituals. Sometimes, that's just to give you an idea. So these people are like that. They were descendants of the ancient Persian fire worshippers who had inclination towards the religion of their ancestors. But they were unable to outwardly practice that, to show it out, for fear of the swords of the Muslims, because now they were in the heart of a new and thriving Islamic empire. So they established rules, like codes, based on old Persian religious ideas. Because the dualists, the Thanawiyah, and the Majus, those two groups are close, they believed in two gods. One who's light, and he's the creator of good and benefit, and one who's dark, who's the creator of evil and harm. And they said that all of the things in the world, all of the bodies came forth from these two, the light and the dark. And both of those two have natures. Four natures, four elements. Not elements, but I'm not sure if there's a word that might be translated here. Taba'i'u arba'ah, four natures, which were hotness, coldness, dryness, and moisture. Don't try to make sense out of all of that. This is their talk. So what did the Batiniya do? They took this idea and they put code words for it. So they said, Allah Ta'ala, He created the self. And so Allah is the first and the self is the second. And maybe they would say the mind is the first and the self is the second. That's their placeholders for the light and the dark. Or for Yazdan and Ahriman, according to the Majus religion. Yazdan, who is the god of light and good, and Ahriman, which is the devil, the god of evil and bad. And they claim that this intellect and this self were the managers of the world, using the 7 stars and the 4 elements or 4 natures to manage and control the world. And among the Batiniya were some of the Baramika. The Baramika, what are those called again? The Barmakids. The Barmakids. I don't have much information about those. The Barmakids, it is said here on Wikipedia, They were an influential Iranian family from the area of Balkh. I have in my footnotes, Kanu was Wuzara. They were governors. The Baramika. So amongst the Baltiniya, there were some people from this group or this clique or this family, the Baramika, who strove to, being people who were actually in political power, they strove to establish fire worship in the midst of the Muslims. These people now are a secret society amongst Muslims. So, and some of them got into power, into positions of power. So they strove to establish fire worship in the midst of the Muslims. How so? Because some of them had access to the Caliph Harun al-Rashid. They said, oh, you know what you should do? You should put in the Kaaba incense burning, something for burning incense. And then you will have contributed, like those before you who have contributed. From time to time, there come Muslim rulers and Muslims who practice philanthropy, and they contribute to the benefit of the Muslims in different ways. So that's what they were telling him. They were saying to him, why don't you make a contribution that all the Muslims will benefit from, like those before you from time to time have thought of very beneficial contributions for the Muslims. Why don't you put in the Kaaba something for burning incense? And what they wanted to do, their ultimate goal, was to make the Kaaba a house for fire so that they could worship it. So when the Muslim scholars discovered this, then they tipped the Caliph off and they stopped him from doing that. And just like these Baltinis had done trickery in the fundamentals of the religion, they also did trickery to entrap their followers by inclining their followers to them. How so? By legalizing for their followers all of the pleasures and all of the enjoyments. They even legalized for their followers marrying their own daughters and marrying their own sisters, which is from the practices of the Majus. And also, it's said about the Majus, and Allah knows best, they didn't used to bury their dead. They used to leave their dead out in the open, and the birds would come and eat them. So they dropped all the obligations, the worships, they dropped them for their followers. And they gave alternative explanations to the meanings of these fundamental elements of the religion. They said the meaning of the fara'id, the obligations, is really pledging allegiance to the leaders and the imams. They mean their leaders. And the meaning of the muharramat, the haram things, the unlawful things, is refraining from supporting Abu Bakr and Umar. And it is opposing their way, the way of the Batiniya. That's the meaning of haram. And they also said the angels. What are the angels? What are the malaika? What does that mean? That means you. They meant their followers. You are the malaika. And the shayateen, the devils, what does that mean? They said that means those Muslims and their scholars. Those are the shayateen. That's similar to how the so-called nation, they said, who are the devils? The white man. The white man is the devil. And there's Muslims today who say those words. Racist Muslims. Black racist Muslims. They call white people devils. And they used to call their own followers the believers. And they used to call anyone who was opposing them donkeys. The hamir. And they used to call, and they called them al-zahiriyah. It means the people of the apparent, what's outside, the outward ones. They're saying those ones that are not as we are, they are like just the blind ones who are not knowing the realities of things, the zahiriyah, the people of the outward situation. And amongst those Baltinis, there was a man named Ubaydullah ibn al-Hussein al-Qayrawani. And he wrote a message to another one. His name is Sulaiman ibn al-Hasan al-Qarmati. What did he say in this message to al-Qarmati? He said to him, I advise you with making the people skeptical about the Torah and the Injil and the Quran. For that is your greatest assistance, to say that the world is beginningless. And I advise you to know the schemes of the prophets and to know all of their contradictory matters. Like how Jesus told the Jews that he will not abrogate any of their sacred law, and then he abrogated Saturday and put Sunday in its place, and he changed the Qibla, the prayer direction of Moses, and then when the Jews knew about that, they killed him. He said in that letter, and I advise you not to be like the master of this degenerate nation. He means not to be like Muhammad. I advise you not to be like the master of this degenerate nation. When he was asked about the soul, he didn't even know what to say. It came in the Quran, وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ. Oh Muhammad, they ask you about the soul. قُلِ الرُّوحُ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّي. Say the soul is a matter of my Lord. وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. And you have not been given of the knowledge but a little bit. He's saying, look, don't be like that one Muhammad. When he was asked about the soul, he didn't even know what to say. And then his followers accepted that. And don't be like Moses, who claimed what he claimed. And he didn't even have any evidence except some tricks and some sleight of hand. The real one, the master of his time, was the one who said, فَحَشَرَ فَنَادَى فَقَالَ أَنَا رَبُّكُمُ الْأَعْلَى. That one who gathered the people at the time of Moses, and he said, I am your Lord Most High. He was the real master. And also he said in his message, and what's even stranger than this is that in their religion, he means in the Muslim religion, is one of them would have a beautiful daughter and he would forbid her for himself and he would permit her for a stranger. And had he had a little bit of intellect, he would have known that he is more deserving of his own daughter than that strange man. But those Muslims, they are some people who are fooled by a man about something that will never ever happen. He means Judgment Day and paradise and hell. He frightened them about Judgment Day and hell, and he made them desirous of paradise. And like that, he enslaved them. And also among what he said in his message was, you and your brothers, you are the inheritors, you are the heirs, those who shall inherit paradise. And he meant by brothers the Baltinies. And he meant by paradise this dunya, the pleasures of this earthly life. Those pleasures, according to him, that those ignorant ones who are steadfast to some sacred law refrain from. Those followers of false prophets. He said in his letter, congratulations to you. Enjoy the pleasures. Enjoy the relaxation. You have arrived. And you are done with accountability. That accountability that those people have been inflicted with. Wa alaikum assalam.
Did any of the scholars ever refute any of them?
Yes. But people like that usually really, it's not really a matter of refuting them because they know they're lying. They know they're ignorant. It's not like they're not like Wahhabis who think they're right and they're trying to argue with you to prove something. They have a goal of tricking people actually. So if you talk to one of them, like for example, once I talked to one of the followers of Malachi York years ago. So this was on 52nd Street when, you know how they used to have stands and be selling his little booklets and stuff. So I stopped and talked to one. And he said, well, don't you know that Arabic didn't used to have any vowels? Arabic is perverted and the Quran is perverted, he was saying. He said, don't you know that Arabic didn't even used to have vowels? I told him, well, it did have vowels. They just didn't used to write the harakat. But the vowels were there. They just didn't have characters for those vowels. So he said to me, you're someone who studies. I have nothing else to say to you. Then I said one more thing to him. He said, didn't I say that I have nothing else to say to you? So I just turned and walked away from him. So, yeah, the scholars refuted them, but it's a matter of really just trying to protect the layman, warning the layman from those types of ideas so that if you're someone, not you, if someone is easily fooled, that if he ever met someone like that he wouldn't be fooled. Subhanallah wa bihamdihi. The author says, know that the first of what they do to fool a statesman or a layman who has no experience is to make the scholars low and ugly in the eyes of the layman. They say to one of those laymen or statesmen who have no experience, your scholars don't know anything. And if you want, you can test them and then you will know their situation. You will know their situation from what they say. Ask them, how come it's obligatory to wash the face in wudu when the impurity came from another spot? What kind of wisdom is that? And what kind of smart person would think that that's good? And why is it obligatory to wash all of the body for a single drop of semen that came out of a person? But when it comes to massive amounts of urine and feces that come out, the person only has to wash a few organs. The other way around is more sensible, and ask them, how come Maghrib is 3 rak'ahs and Fajr is 2 rak'ahs, while both of them are at the extremities of the daytime? They should be the same. And how come there's only 1 ruku' but there's 2 sujuds? And how come the private part of the fornicator is not cut, but the hand of the thief is cut? Both of those organs were the tool of treachery. And ask them, why is there only 1 tongue but 2 ears? And only 1 penis but 2 testicles? And how come the eyelashes grow on all the eyelids of the human being, while the rest of the animals only have eyelashes on 2 out of 4 of their eyelids? And why is it that the breast of the human is on his chest, while the breast of all the other animals are on their stomachs? And how come some animals lay eggs and some animals give birth to live babies? So after this type of talk, if they are successful in luring in some statesman or layman, they would say, these rules that you practice, those were put for the donkeys and for the normal people. And you are amongst the special ones. You are amongst the elites. You should have something special that is different from their religion, that goes against their religion, the religion of the Muslims. And they say, and Muhammad, he was not really a prophet and he was not really a messenger. Rather, he was a wise man who enslaved the laymen. And then he put obligations on them. And so the special elite ones must have something by which they distinguish themselves. And they should not follow what is baseless. So the layman, when he hears this talk, he becomes confused. And then he would go back to a person of knowledge. And so that person of knowledge would say to him, don't listen to this talk. And don't be fooled by that. This is the talk of the Batiniyah. This is the talk of the people of the hidden meanings. And what you're asking me about, these things that you're asking me, these are matters that Allah commanded, how to pray, how to make purification. These are things that Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala commanded. And so there's no objection to them. If this is how He commanded to make wudu, and why He commanded to make wudu, the things that He made us obligated to make wudu for, and likewise the ghusl, if these are the things that mandate a ghusl, and this is the way to perform the ghusl, then there's no objection to that. And had Allah Ta'ala commanded for it to be another way, then that would be valid too. And all of those things you asked about, those are things that Allah created. And He could have created them differently, because His power, He has power over everything possible. Don't you see that Allah created some creatures with 2 feet, and He created some with 4, and He created some with no feet, and they walk about on their bellies? And He created some that fly with wings, and He created some that walk on land, and if they were to fall into water, they would die. And He created some things that live on land and at sea. And He created some things that are heavy and they would sink into water like stones and metal. And He created some things that float like wood and other things. All of that is because Allah has power over everything possible, and He does whatever He wills. So that's the answer. of the person of knowledge. So then that layman would take his answer and go back to the one who asked him the questions in the first place and tell him the answer. So then what would that Baltini say? He would say, so now you know that your scholar doesn't know anything. And then he would make that layman skeptical about the religion. And he would make him doubtful about the scholar. And he would give a false impression to whoever was gullible. Once he's confused, they would say to him, no one is aware of these secrets but us. So then that layman would tell him, well, tell me your secrets, clarify it. So they would say to him, these are not secrets that are merely given without any pact, without any covenant. These are secrets that the special elite ones know. So then they make that layman swear by Allah and swear by the messenger and swear by emancipating slaves and swear by divorce and swear by dedicating money for the sake of God. When really all of those things that they make him swear by mean nothing to them. Because they don't believe in Allah and they don't believe in the messenger. And they would say to him also, we shall not expose our secret to you until you offer a good offering. And then they request from him 199 pure bars of silver. And they say, why 199 pure bars of silver? Because Allah said, وَأَقْرِضُوا اللَّهَ قَرْضًا حَسَنًا. Literally it means give God a good loan. Give God a good loan. The ayah has a meaning. Doesn't mean that Allah takes a loan. But for now, just keep moving. That's just a literal translation. So the word hasana in the ayah, it has 4 letters, ha, sin, nun, alif. And if you put those 4 letters together, if you take the numerical value of each one of those letters, every letter in Arabic has a numerical value. Like alif is 1, and ba is 2, and jim is 3, and dal is 4, and ha is 5, and wow is 6, and zay is 7, etc. Until you get to the letter ghain. Ghain is 1,000. So now we don't have the time really to go into that. So there's something called hisabul jummal, where every letter in Arabic has a numerical value. The poets use this a lot. So it's a way to hide meanings in words. So they say, if you take the numerical value of the ha and the sin and the noon and the alif, then it adds up to 199. وَأَقْرِضُوا اللَّهَ قَرْضًا حَسَنًا. Give God a good loan. Hasana is 199. So you give an offering of 199 pure bars of silver. So then that gullible one, he would hear this talk and then he would pay them. And he would make a covenant with them. And then he would say to them, now there's nothing left but for you to guide me to your way and to expose your secrets to me. But they would still be afraid to expose to him the reality of their matter. So they present to him something that seems to be Islam, so that he would not immediately object to them. And then they would give him something little by little, stripping him from his religion, pulling him away from Islam. And they say to the beginner, Allah created the four-legged beasts, and out of all of them he chose one, which is the deer. And he made the deer the source of musk. If you know that the deer has a little pouch that grows on its belly, and then he rubs that pouch off. There's blood in that pouch, but it transforms into musk. So they say Allah created the four-legged beasts, and among them he chose one, which is the deer, because the deer is the source of the musk. And so from the deer comes these beautiful, nice smells of this paradise. They mean the dunya, the earthly life. And he created the winged creatures, and of all the winged creatures he chose one, and that's the bee. And he made the bee the source of the honey, which is the nicest of the sweets in this paradise. And he created the creatures that crawl upon their bellies, and he chose one, which is the silkworm. And that is the source of the silk that is the decoration of this paradise. And he created the people, and he chose Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that one who's listening to them, he likes this talk. And then they say to him, do you know who's Muhammad? He would say, yes. Muhammad is the messenger of Allah. He came out of Mecca and he claimed prophethood and he had the message and he presented miracles. So they would say to him, this talk of yours is the talk of those donkeys. Muhammad is you. So then that one who's hearing that, he says, A'udhu billah, I'm not Muhammad. So they say to him, didn't Allah say, لَقَدْ جَاءَكُمْ رَسُولٌ مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ, there has come to you a messenger from yourselves. That's what the Quran says, that the messenger came from yourselves. And those donkeys, they say that the messenger came from Mecca. And then that gullible one says, so what's the meaning of saying that I am Muhammad then? So they say, Allah created you and gave you the form of Muhammad, because Muhammad is a word made from four letters, Mim, Ha, Mim, Dal. And the head is like the first meme, and the two hands is like the ha, and the navel, the belly button is the second meme, and the 2 feet are the dal. So you are Muhammad, and I am Muhammad, and we're all Muhammad. And also you are Ali. So that person would say, how am I Ali? So they would say to him, because Ali, this name is a name with a secret. It has 3 letters, Ain, Lam, Ya. And the Ain is the eye, and the Lam is the nose, and the Ya is the mouth. So you are Ali, and I am Ali, and we're all Ali. And he would say, Allah created everything with the shape of Muhammad. And he created everything with the shape of Ali, even the mouse. So then they make that person believe that Muhammad and Ali are not really names for 2 particular individuals. And they say to him, don't you know the meaning of the ayah, فَلْيَعْبُدُوا رَبَّ هَذَا الْبَيْتِ? It means, let them worship the Lord of this house, the Kaaba. That's the ayah, the real meaning of the ayah. فَلْيَعْبُدُوا رَبَّ هَذَا الْبَيْتِ. They say the Rabb, which literally means Lord, is the soul. And the Bayt, the house, which is the Kaaba, really is the body. فَلْيَعْبُدُوا رَبَّ هَذَا الْبَيْتِ. The Rabb is the soul and the Bayt is the body. So then what does that mean? They're saying worship yourself. Don't worship Allah. Worship yourself. So they lead the person by this talk to say that there's no God and there's no prophet. There's just this body that you have, and then they make him believe that he has no obligations and that he has no limit when it comes to human enjoyment. When they talk to him, they start off making dua for the people of the Prophet's family, and by the end, they take him out of his religion. And they might call the person to believe in the 7 Imams or the 12 Imams. Yani, they would show outwardly that they're Shiites. But really, they're not Shiites, they are Baltinis. And then, if an ignorant person answers them and he likes them and settles with them, they would say, those Imams, they are people like you. They are men like you're a man. They're humans like you're a human. They have no merit over you, no nobility over you. And their names are just expressions that have a secret. And by these names, the world is controlled with its natures. And like this, they take the person out of his religion by their tricks. And if they encountered someone who likes to worship a lot, then they would charge him with fasting many days consistently without breaking his fast. Until that poor person gets weak and he gets bored and tired of fasting. And then once he reaches that point and he submits to them, apparently, then they tell him, now you can stop. And now you can enjoy everything. And sometimes they might teach the person reincarnation. We ask Allah Tabaraka wa Ta'ala to spare the Muslims from the evil of these people and their likes. Those types are ignorant. Those types are very ignorant. They don't have knowledge. They only seem like they have knowledge to someone who's very ignorant. Like back in the day, here in America, I mean, when people really didn't know about Islam, like in the 60s and the 50s and around that time. And then some people came with their cults and they start talking similar to this. So that talk sounds to the ignorant person like knowledge. So they say there's 3 levels of darkness. And there's the supreme alphabet. And all kinds of stuff they say. That's really ignorance, not knowledge. Wallahu tabaraka wa ta'ala a'lam. Allah knows best. Barakallahu fikum. If you have any question I can answer for you, I will be glad to. What century did these people exist? They were at the tail end of the Salaf. They started around the year 220, 230 after the Hijrah. And by the time this author wrote his book, At-Tafsiru fi Din, they were still existing. And they had spread. And in some places, they even gained power. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.